Last night, Joe Rogan hosted Donald Trump for his 2,219th episode of Joe Rogan Experience. It was probably the greatest podcast ever done. I sincerely believe that. To have a former president and frontrunner sit down for a raw 3-hour conversation, weaving through numerous subjects, one of the most amazing moments, and there was a lot. I seriously recommend you listen to the full thing, if you haven't already, was when Donald Trump was talking about property. He was talking about growth. He was talking about the national debt. And he said something where I just went, this guy gets it. He said, and I'll paraphrase, growth and debt. He says, we want to get the deficit down. We want to get the debt down. But also, you got to think about growth there, because if your growth is greater than your deficit or your debt, then you're under levered. And so I'm like, man, this guy's really thought about this. He knows this stuff. Here's a guy who takes in loans, creates buildings, say build buildings, and he knows about debt versus growth. This guy gets it. But there's a lot more there. And I got to say, just right off the bat, it may seem somewhat, I don't know, mundane. But I truly believe the best part of this podcast was when Joe Rogan and Donald Trump were talking about boxing and MMA. And the reason for it is that's when you truly see just two guys talking about something they're passionate about. It was amazing. You know, when Donald Trump is talking about tariffs, he's talking about environmental policy, I'm impressed. There's certain circumstances where Trump doesn't answer a question very well, but he picks it up very well. And I'll explain. But when I saw that MMA UFC, I'm just thinking, you know, these are two guys and they're just shooting the ish. You know what I mean? But I will say this too, and then we'll jump through some of these news stories and some clips for you. There's one instance where Donald Trump is talking about ending the war in Ukraine. And Joe says, what would you do to end the war? And Trump meanders a little bit and he says, look, you know, I know them very well. I could get this done. I truly believe it. And Joe says, yes, but what would you do? And Trump says, I'm not going to say it for the sake of sounding smart to 5 people in a room. If I told you what I wanted to say to these men, I would not be able to do it. But trust me, I truly believe that if I called up Putin, I called up him, and he was referring to Zelensky, I could get this war done as there be peace as president-elect. And I'm impressed by that. What the left is going to say, the liberals are going to say is, he has no answer. He's right. I agree. Could you imagine if Trump comes out and he goes, I'm going to call up Putin and tell him ABC 1, 2, 3, and then Zelensky 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. You can't publicly announce your negotiating tactics. And so, but Trump picks it up well by saying, I'm not going to just blurt it out for the sake of sounding smart to 5 people. Look, to have this 3-hour raw conversation, no notes, jumping from topics, incredible. You take a look at what's going on with Kamala Harris, and here are the rumors. The rumors that I've seen reported, and I say rumors because there's different reporting going on. She said she had a scheduling conflict, and other reports suggest that she had stipulations about what Joe could talk about, and Joe refused, which you know he did. Now, my friends, I think the most important thing for me to say is clearly Joe Rogan is voting for Donald Trump. He talks about RFK Jr., and there's this really great moment where Donald Trump is saying, he's like, you know, Elon gave me this great endorsement. You should do it, Joe. And Joe just starts laughing. Yeah. Take a look at this. So I want to show you some of the highlights and break down for you where we're at. Some people are saying this is it. This conversation sealed the deal for so many people. I mean, they spent a portion talking about the fascism propaganda, the Hitler propaganda. It's incredible. Joe's like, they just call you Hitler. I mean, it's insane. There was a panel done. I think it was Mark Halperin. I could be wrong. But you have all these undecided voters. Yes, they exist. Very few of them. And this guy's like, look, I think the reason I'm being pushed towards Trump is because the Democrats just keep saying he's Hitler. It's like they go to Hitler right away. And I'm like, this is absurd. And the journalist who's holding the panel, again, I think it's Halperin, says, do you think that this rhetoric is helpful for the country? And everyone on the panel just shakes their head no. Yet people don't care. You can't just say Trump is Hitler over and over and over again. It's not real. It's not true. But I'll show you the takeaways, some of the big takeaways, and I want to play for you this amazing clip. Donald Trump actually said, Joe Rogan asks him, do you really want to get rid of the income tax in exchange for tariffs? And Trump's like, yeah, why not? Look at, this is incredible. Trump is like, you go back to the 1880s when we were extremely wealthy and it was based off tariffs. Tariffs were funding the government. That's how we were doing it. And we were one of the top nations in the world. And you look at how we're operating now. It's incredible. He's basically talking about how if the people of this country have more to spend, then growth and development skyrocket. But when the government bogs them down with mass spending for government interests, it inhibits economic activity. Funding everything through tariffs because people want the American people as customers results in better funding from the government, but internally you can grow rapidly. There's a lot to break down here, and I'll play some of these clips from Donald Trump. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. We've got the big reveal, Josh Sider, his social experiment. You may have seen it. He was claiming for 5 months to be trans, and then he wasn't. And so we have a behind the scenes look. And as a member, you'll get access to the Discord community. So if you want to hang out with people who are like-minded and join the pre-shows, the after shows, and all of the other shows that they do, you can hang out with people, maybe help build a project. Maybe you want to make a comic book or write a song. You've got a community here that is on board, ready to help you guys out. Go to timcast.com, become a member. Also go to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee. Appalachian Nights, everybody's favorite. And of course, Ian's Graphene Dream. Check it out. But let's start with this. Fox News says Trump appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast for nearly 3 hours. Here are the top moments. Just say 3 hours, guys. It was 2 hours and 58 minutes and 30 seconds or something, right? Trump tapes the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Absolutely incredible. Trump asks Rogan to explain why he's gotten bad publicity. So Trump is like, I don't know. This is so incredible. Trump is like, I just get more publicity than so many people. And then Joe goes, well, you said a lot of wild ish. You did. And then Trump laughs. You know, I think it was it might have been Jack Posobiec. I can't remember who commented this. So sorry if I'm not giving you the proper credit. But they said on X, yeah, no way. Kamala Harris has a lot of crazy stuff, too, and she doesn't get the publicity. But I think it's fair to say when Trump comes out and says, we're going to get rid of the income tax, tariffs are better, then it's something that's going to generate publicity. The New York Times, look at this. Trump flirts with the ultimate tax cut, no income taxes at all. I mean, yeah, that's pretty up there. When Kamala Harris says something like, the thing that we need to talk about is something that needs to be talked about by everyone. And I'm going to focus on these things that we're supposed to be talking about because we can't not talk about them. And you're like, yeah, that's a wild thing to say because you said nothing, but there's nothing there to write on. What am I going to write? Kamala Harris says she wants to do a thing at some point, a thing that needs to be done. Not interested. While explaining the process of choosing political nominations once he got in office, Trump discussed his initial appointment of John Bolton, who served as White House National Security Advisor. In 2019, Trump fired Bolton, who remains a staunch critic. Yeah. Trump described, it was so amazing. It was so amazing when Joe says, like, you hired bad people. And then Trump is like, he gets asked if he made any mistakes. And Trump is like, some people I probably shouldn't have hired. And Joe is just like neocons. And then Trump goes, neocons, they're bad people, very bad people. Every libertarian started screaming and throwing their hats in the air. Here's a couple more. Rogan tells Trump the rebels are Republicans now, and Elon Musk agrees. He says the rebels are Republicans now. Like, you want to be invisible, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system. You're conservative now, Rogan said. That's how crazy. And then liberals are now pro-silencing criticism. I want to pull up this tweet from Mehdi Hasan, which perfectly exemplifies why this podcast was needed and why people are sick of the corporate press machine. So here we go. This is a tweet that I saw retweeted by Crystal Ball. Mehdi Hasan says, Trump to Rogan, the liberals are now pro-silencing criticism. They are pro-censorship. Then he says Trump at a rally in Michigan just hours later, 60 Minutes should be taken off the air and CBS should lose its license. You see, Mehdi Hasan knows what he's doing. He is manipulating you. Take a look at this first response. Jefferson's Violin. I wonder who that is. He says they deceitfully cut an interview answer of Kamala from another question and pasted it to a different question. According to the FEC chair, yes, they could lose their license for this. Beneath it, Kevin Bass, PhD, MS, says he's anti-censorship, but CBS manipulated the interview to mislead the public to interfere with the election. CBS broadcasts on public airwaves, so is therefore breaking the law. But go ahead and lie to your followers as usual. I am sick of these people lying. Donald Trump and Joe Rogan are talking about big tech platforms that allowed government intelligence agencies to run back doors so that you could spy on people There have been lawsuits definitively proving that the Biden administration was pressuring X, formerly Twitter, they're pressuring, I should say, Twitter at the time, to shut down people over their COVID views. This is overt censorship of individuals. Donald Trump is specifically referring to 60 Minutes fabricating content to promote a candidate. These are totally different things, but they lie. There you go. So right now, I'm not so sure I agree with that they're Joe Rogan when he says the rebels are Republicans now, because I think we're winning. And we are shutting out the woke, corrupt institutions. To be fair, until Trump wins, it is true. And it's kind of funny, right? But I don't think it's necessarily fair to say Republicans. It is the right. It is the populist movement. It is MAGA. It is whatever. It is populism on the right. You got regular people who agree on most of these issues. And then you've got the uniparty Republicans and Democrats, and they're trash. Trump says he told North Korea's Kim Jong-un to just relax and go to the beach. Ha. Trump discusses Make America Healthy Again initiative. Says he told RFK Jr. just focus on health. This was really incredible because this is where you get Joe Rogan. Joe is a health guy. Dr. Joe. I always make the joke that, shout out to Joe. Look, when Joe was saying RFK Jr. is great, and then Trump criticized him, and then all these Trump supporters were going after him, I was like, guys, why are you attacking a moderate? See, I was right. Look, I was. Joe Rogan is now here giving this platform to Donald Trump, and they had a real conversation, and you can tell that Joe is he's going to vote for Trump, right? I got to tell you, I've had when I got COVID, I called Joe. It's a wild story. It's a wild time, but Joe is a good dude. I owe him a lot. I do. He, we were talking the other day about the Joe Rogan universe, about the careers that he's launched. There are many comedians, and indeed, the depth at which this show exists it's thanks to Joe Rogan. And so I will be eternally grateful. And not only that, but when I got sick with COVID, it is Joe Rogan that helped out not just me, but my entire staff. And when I was having some kind of a hip problem, it was also Joe that gave me advice and connected me with some good people and helped me out. Joe is a health guy, and he's a good dude. You know what, man? It's so brutal because of the way the media treats people. Trump, Rogan, and so many others. And I bring up Trump and Rogan right now because it's just they're the limelight. These leftists, these Democrats, they insult him. CNN pasted his face green, and I'm like, you know what, man? I've met a lot of people in my day, and I've been backstabbed. I have been lied to. I have been cheated. And then I meet someone like Trump. He's not a perfect guy, but when I meet him for the first time, he's just really nice. And the stories I hear about how he's always trying to help people. The story of his car, he gets a flat tire. A guy helps change the tire. A guy pulls over and says, "Can I give you a hand with your tire?" Next thing you know, is Trump paid off his mortgage. Then you got Joe Rogan, and I can't speak for anybody else, but the dude offered to help me and my staff when we were sick, and no one asked him to do that. He offered it because he's a good dude, and I'm eternally grateful. But the health stuff is where you really get him. So this conversation, was massive, and I think this is what will put Joe over the edge in this choice, right? But take a look at this. Let's go to this. Trump flirting with the ultimate tax cut. I've got the show pulled up here. It's just near the end. Trump tells an incredible story that I want you to hear.
You know how to use the power. I stopped other wars just by the use of tariffs. I got Macron of France. Good guy's like a friend of mine, but he's a wise guy. And he's a person that likes France, and he was going to tax our companies. I sent all the smartest guys. I sent Mnuchin, and they all failed me. And I said, I'll do it myself. And I called him. I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies. We're not going to allow you to do that. Oh, Donald, I cannot do it. Nothing I could do. It's already been passed. I said, Emmanuel, if you do that, I'm going to put 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes that come into the United States. And you're going to regret that you ever did it. He said, Donald, please, that's not fair. Anyway, within about 2 minutes, he dropped the whole thing. It was massive amounts of money against American companies. I have to protect American companies.
So why doesn't the...
So that clip right there is incredible because the media is going to lie to you. These Democrats, they are lying. They keep saying tariffs are a tax on the working class. Donald Trump is lying to you, blah, blah, blah. I don't think y'all are stupid. I think you understand how tariffs work. But let's break down the manipulations the Democrats are putting forward. So when Trump says, I'm going to put a tariff on your product, I'm going to put a 100% tax on your wines and cheeses coming from France to America. Please, Donald, that's not fair. They say, yeah, all that means is the cost is being passed on to you, American consumer. What they're not telling you is the purpose of the tariff in this instance is to pressure France to drop the taxes they have on our companies. And how the tariff would basically function is France would be unable to sell the product in this country because a $10 block of cheese would become $20. And American consumers would say, pass, I don't want it. Now, listen, of course that means, but then the consumer doesn't get their French cheese. It's not fair. Maybe you want your cheap cheese. The point is this. In this regard, it's a negotiating tactic that forces France to play fair. That means there was no tariff. A threat of a tariff happened, and ultimately it alleviate taxes on American businesses. We should have absolute reciprocity. If a country wants to tax our goods, we tax them back. We shouldn't just be like, you get a free ride from us. But also, let's go a little bit in depth on tariffs and why I actually support Donald Trump's proposals. I'd love to see the income tax gone completely. Now, what does that mean? My friends, if we move to a pure tariff system, that means imported goods will become more expensive for you. And imagine if you got to keep 100% of your income. If you were buying an American-made good, it is going to be cheap. But if you want to buy from China or Mexico, expensive. Understand what that does to this country. Think about it for 2 seconds. See, they're lying to you because they want to offshore your jobs. There is cheap labor in China. You know, man, I can't stand these people. We have a skateboard company, the Boonies. Go to boonieshq.com, pick up your Step-on Sneck and Find Out board if you'd so like it. These boards are made in America. And then all the work done, distribution, everything, America. These are American jobs. And you know what it means? Our skateboards are more expensive. It means our profit margins are less. But I know what it means for a country and for a culture to have good paying jobs and a robust community around what I care about, that is skateboarding. So many of these big companies, and they offered this to us too. They said, Tim, why don't you make your skateboards in China? And I said, no. And yeah, but look, you're going to save $10 a board. I mean, that's profit in your pocket. Why? Because Chinese laborers work for a pittance. I said, no. I know what that means in the long run. Here's what would happen with tariffs. If we run the system on tariffs to fund the U.S. government, there's going to be imported goods. People will want to sell to the American people. It will happen. But it means that in America, someone's going to say, if we want to get our boards made in China, it's going to actually cost us the same or more. Just get them made locally. The shipping time is shorter. Then that company that's based in, say, PA that makes skateboards says, I just got a bunch of orders. Americans start getting these jobs. And you know what? Americans get paid more, and they deserve to get paid more. But when Americans get paid more and more Americans have cash to spend, this raises all ships. So I agree, and I think it's ridiculous. They're saying, no, allow the big corporations to outsource your jobs to offshore factories so that the Chinese workers who work for $1 an hour can get paid dirt, and the corporations, the big wigs are going to get a premium on their profits. And then what happens? We don't have medicines in this country. We don't make computer chips in this country. That is ridiculous. We need a robust labor force. Otherwise, the country just ceases to exist. And these powerful interests are extracting from the system to burn it down. So you know what? Shout out to Donald Trump. I agree with him on this regard. So this is the clip in question. Here you go.
Tariffs.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families.
You're here.
Unless they pay a big price. And the big price is tariffs.
Yep, they got to pay a big price. And it does two things. Penalizes, but also makes it much more difficult. And I've heard a lot of people say protectionism, and trade is wrong. We want free trade. I don't agree. We need to take care of ourselves and this country. We need to make sure that young people, Gen Z, are waking up to find a country in which they will have a home. They can start a family. They can make money, get a job. There's this funny clip going around where Don Lemon interviews this young guy who struggles to articulate his opinions on things, and it's unfortunate. He's asked who he's voting for. He says Trump. He says, the economy and immigration are big factors for him, but it's clear that he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and it makes me a little bummed out. But he says, I get my news from Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, and Steven Crowder. I avoid the more extreme guys like Andrew Tate. And then Don Lemon says, isn't Tim Pool extreme? And he's like, come on, Tim Pool, he's a little extreme. And it's fascinating because I'm like, it's so wild how not extreme I am. And perhaps I'd be better off if I was. But anyway, the kid says, yeah, I don't know. I don't really watch him. He's been doing the clickbait or whatever. And it's like, whatever, dude. But I got to tell you, pretty sure if you were to watch my show and you actually listen to what I'm saying and you stop and think about it, you might have a better response when someone asks you about why you support tariffs. And by all means, I can tell you, I don't know. I'm not an economist. Not at all. But I can understand to a certain degree what Trump is saying. And I agree. See, right now, I have a choice as a proprietor of a business to offshore to China, get our skateboards made at a discount. I got to tell you, my friends, the Chinese boards are good. I'm not kidding. They are good boards. They sent us samples and they're like, here are the two different board companies that we have available. And I'm like, wow, this board is premium. And they're like, yeah, that's China. I'm like, nope, don't care. And don't get me wrong. The boards we have are still really, really good. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying I was surprised that the Chinese boards were as good as the American-made ones. Now, I think the American-made ones are still better. They are. But I was impressed. I was like, this cheap board came from China and it's that good? I have nothing stopping me but my own moral conscience to say I will not buy from China. And I could save myself money. What about these other companies? They don't care. They'd knife you in the back in 2 seconds. These big corporations. They'll make your drugs. They'll make your masks, their PPE, whatever it is that we didn't have during COVID. They'll make it in China for a discount rate at the expense of American jobs and give our labor to another country, creating a circumstance where we have no functioning tax base. Social Security begins to fail. The country begins to crumble. Now, if only this young man could articulate that to Don Lemon. Imagine, and I wish, but, I'm actually rather glad he said he doesn't watch me as much anymore, because I'd be really embarrassed if he said, I watch Tim Pool all the time, talk about the best show ever. And then he was like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I can't articulate a single thought. I'd be like, oof, I'm not doing too well in my commentary. But I suppose it's fair to say you can bring a horse to Harvard, but you can't make him learn. But we do have some other things to get to because we've had some other clips. Look at this one. So Joe Rogan podcast on X. Might as well poll here, they say. Let's hit the refresh button and see where we're currently at. They said Trump or Harris. 96.4 saying Trump. Aw, sad, isn't it? This one's really great, too. At America Tweets, Rogan saying voter ID is the most bizarre argument. Let me just play the clip.
Bizarre argument that I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you
want to
don't
cheat.
need voter.
They want to cheat.
It doesn't make sense any other way. I've tried to straw man it, or I've tried to steel man it, rather. I've tried to look at it from a position like, why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are just ridiculous. You need an ID to get a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the world.
Newsom.
And I used to get along, but I don't get along with him now because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom the other day signed a bill that you are not allowed to ask a person, even ask them whether or not they have a voter ID.
Now, what could be a charitable reason why anybody would want that? But that would be the only thing that makes sense.
But
look at this. And I think it was Gallup, might have been The Economist, I'm not sure. They said that 84% of people polled said you should have an ID to vote. It's because Democrats cheat. I mean, that's it. That's really it. This is, I did have the Mehdi Hassan thing pulled up. So here we go with the current polymarket presidential election winner. Trump is sitting at about 64% to Kamala Harris is 36%. Big moves. And of course, the balance of power, the plurality at 48%, suggesting the Republicans are going to sweep. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like Joe Rogan may have just signed the deal. In the podcast, Rogan says, Trump says like, oh, you finally, is this why you called me up and had me on? And Joe says, as soon as you got shot, I was like, I got to have this guy on. And I feel like, yeah, I'm going to be honest. And I contemplate some of these things, saying these things about certain people that, I know and consider friends, because it's not like I'm trying to insult anybody, but I do feel like it may be irksome to a lot of people, but I just try to be as honest as possible, even to my own detriment. Like I did that episode of IRL on Monday where I was like, I'm thinking of shutting things down. And, and people are like, it's unprofessional, Tim. And I'm like, man, I'm a transparent guy. People don't like it, I guess. But I think it's important that people know what is going on behind the scenes and people have an idea. And if that means that there are some people that can't handle it, don't like it, are mad at me for it, it's just, I feel like, look, if it compromises someone's safety, if they've asked me not to talk about it, I won't. But I will say this. I think Joe Rogan has been set on voting for Trump for some time. I don't know personally. He's never said anything to me about it. But I feel like you can't look at a man who is so well-versed on the issues and could ask these questions, who would then consider voting for Kamala Harris. So when he was saying that he thought RFK Jr. was the only guy that made sense, I don't believe it for a second. And so I suppose to a degree it may be that I am imputing the honor of Joe by saying such a thing. No, I think Joe is trying to be a leader. And a lot of people have criticized Joe, saying he should have had Trump on a long time ago. And I'm like, listen, there are a lot of people who watch Rogan. And I've got a good friend of mine who I've known for 20 years, who is a woke liberal, but more default liberal. Not if I were to sit down with this person, and we were hanging out and talk politics, they're going to be like, I don't know any of this stuff. But they're going to be posting on social media all of the typical woke stuff when it happens. But they're still good friends of mine because they're not super involved in politics. It's kind of funny. If they were, they'd be like Tim Pool's far right or whatever, or they'd be asking me questions. Because I have friends who, deeply involved in politics, lost their minds. And it's kind of sad. But this friend of mine is just like, no, I don't know, whatever. Like, cool, you do a show. I guess it's political. I'm not super into politics. But I know for a fact this person watches Rogan all the time, every episode. And Joe is a middle-of-the-road guy that can speak in a way that doesn't offend the sensibilities of a default liberal. Trump just went on Rogan's show for 3 hours, and Joe basically said all of these Democrat talking points are absurd right at the 11th hour. Literally 11 days to go to the election. Now I think, 10 days? So my friends that I know that are watching that show are being swayed. They're hearing for the first time. If Joe comes out and just says, I'm a MAGA guy, this is a Trump podcast, not literally, but it's like, yeah, you got to vote for Trump, and he does it a year ago, then these people are going to be like, it's Fox News all over again. The attacks are going to start pouring in, and it may actually dissuade middle-of-the-road people and even liberals from listening to a conversation that could benefit them. I think we are much better served by Joe saying, keep me out of the politics. Let me tell you why this thing that's happening right now is important. Now, I've thought the same thing, too. Many people have said, Tim, you should not endorse Trump. You should have remained the milquetoast fence sitter and never. Yeah, but I'm being honest. I've always just tried to be honest in how I feel about things and what I think about things. They're different, by the way. And that is when I decided to vote for Trump is because I honestly looked at his agenda and I said, boy, I'd be a hypocrite if I came out and pretended like I didn't support this for the sake of like trying to sway moderates. And there were a lot of people that I see post in the comments. They were like, I used to watch Tim, but then he became full MAGA because he supports Trump, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so be it. So I can say this. I genuinely think Joe is going to be voting for Donald Trump and has been for some time. But I think, and I'm not trying to impugn the honor in no way. I think he's trying to be a responsible leader because he knows he is. Joe often says, I'm just a guy. I just talk to my friends. I don't want to be this. I'm not a smart guy. I'm just some dumb guy on the internet. I got to tell you, man, ain't nobody buying that. I mean, the left might lie, but we all know that Joe is an extremely smart dude. He's an extremely smart guy. He's a hardworking guy. He's a respectable guy. And he is he is literally the premier thought leader of our generation. I am not saying that because I'm trying to puff him up or anything. I'm saying let's be definitive in this one. The biggest podcast in the world, the king of podcasting, the godfather of modern podcasting, no question. Starting it off, and there are people who started podcasting before him, but he's the guy who revolutionized it and made it massive. You can listen to the way he talks about things. He's inquisitive. He investigates. He hits the nail on the head. Some people say the Walter Cronkite of our generation, whatever that may be. It's not about me saying, oh man, I'm going to puff this guy up. I've already been on his show, I think 4 times. Like I don't need to say nice things about him for any kind of benefit to myself. The dude helped me out. I'm grateful. But I think it's a reality. That's why it is such a big deal when Joe Rogan has Donald Trump on his show and everyone knows it. This is the premier platform and it reaches so many people. Me, you know what I think, honestly? I was thinking about this and where I am and the size of my show. I'm over at politics, man. I'm politics and culture. Joe talks about MMA, sports. He can talk about things all across the board. We don't do that here, and it's just not my passion. I feel like this show, the work that I do, is a political news offshoot of what Joe created. And maybe that might sound, I don't know, some people like cocky or whatever, but no, look. I had 300,000 subscribers. I had 200 on youtube.com/Timcast. And on this channel, I had 120. Joe invited me on the show. I said, Joe, look, we had, there was like, I'd been booked before. I'd been canceled twice. I said, I'm never going to ask you to come on. I'm not going to ask you to come on. You can invite me if you ever feel like it. Cause I would, be great, of course. And then Joe invited me on and then invited me on again. And that instantly exploded this show massively. I gained 600,000 subs in a couple of weeks on one channel. It put me over 1 million collective subs. And then within a few months after that, I had an official 1 million on youtube.com/Timcast. And that is largely the Joe Rogan audience that you guys became viewers of these channels. And so this is people who watch Joe, who cared about the political conversations that I had, decided to watch this show, probably still do watch Joe, but they watch him for everything else. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Then there are other comedy shows that got launched by Joe hosting these conversations. It's really incredible. I wonder what's next for this reality and where we go. I really don't know. But I think I'm always going to be a news and culture guy. And, that is what it is. And there's going to be other people that do comedy and everything else. And Joe hits all of it. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? But I'm eternally grateful. I am and always will be a fan of Joe, not just because he's helped me out tremendously and he's a good dude, but because he hosts the best show. I genuinely do, I could be half as good as Joe Rogan at hosting these shows, but I'm just me. For all the criticisms, by all means, send them my way. And that being said, I wish I could be half as good as Matt Walsh, especially with Am I Racist? But I'm always just going to be me. I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to shout out those guys who do it better. But I'll always try my best, and I'll always shout out Joe and Trump for hosting what is the best podcast I've ever seen. Now, I can tell you, I've seen podcasts about ghosts and Bigfoot that are more entertaining, that are enthralling. But I just mean to have a former president tell you about the nitty-gritty deep down of these conversations, to get an in-depth look for 3 hours, is something we could only have dreamed of. I'll wrap it up there. We got more segments coming up today. Look at me working on the weekends. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Leave us a good review on the audio podcast side if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share the show with everyone you know. Become a member at Timcast.com. Cast Brew Coffee is where you buy coffee. Castbrew.com. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.